So the Batman Rotten Tomatoes score is in. So if you look at it right here, now I had to go through a couple of these. They've since updated it twice, because when I looked at it the first time, it was much higher, and it's still very high in comparison to other ones. But it's a good way of gauging what the critical support for this movie is. Now, I'm also the person who tells you pretty consistently you don't need to listen to critics, because usually critics tend to be bought and paid for, especially when it comes to Disney properties. But this is not a Disney property. This is Warner Brothers, which is a little bit more combative with critics. The same thing happened with Joker, when they said that the movie was going to cause violence, and they were giving it a low score, not because they thought it was a bad movie, but because they were ideologically opposed to the movie, which ended up being wrong anyways, because the movie ended up being nothing like what they were talking about. But this is a constant back and forth between in this industry. So it says the Batman Rotten Tomatoes score is in, and the flick is getting released this week, including Wednesday and Thursday early screenings. I do like how they're going to call it the weekend, it's opening weekend box office, but it's really almost a full week when you think about the fact that it had when we were looking up ticket times, it had Wednesday showings all day. It had Thursday showings all day. So it's not really a 3-day weekend. It's like a 5-day weekend. So it says, update. The score was as high as 96% with around 70 reviews, but has fallen to 87% with 161 reviews. That's still very high for a movie with that many reviews, in which we'll get more.
What's a normal number of reviews for Rotten Tomatoes to get?
That for critic reviews, this is right up there in the hundreds, especially for something like this where they would have given early screenings. And another reason to be hopeful for a movie like this is when they lift the review embargo early, meaning that they're not afraid of what critics are saying about the movie. A lot of times, if the studio doesn't release the embargo on a movie review until a day before it comes out, you have cause for concern. It usually means that they're trying to hide the flaws of the movie. Sometimes some people argue that they'll do that to prevent spoilers or some big surprise, but most of them, no. It's usually to hide bad press. And most of the time now, these sites, that's even more something to worry about, because these sites tend to be owned by the same media conglomerates that make the movies, just from separate divisions.
Right.
So it says, for a comparison, now this lists you the other Batman movies' Rotten Tomatoes score. So Batman vs. Superman had a 29% Rotten Tomatoes score. Still made money, though. Still profitable. The Dark Knight Rises was 87%. The Dark Knight was 94%. And Batman Begins was 84%. That's weird, because I consider Batman Begins to be a much better movie than The Dark Knight Rises. Much better. So, like I said, it's all subjective when you really think about it. It says, and then the 4 previous films, I don't even know how they curated that, because it's not like Rotten Tomatoes was around. I guess somebody would have had to go through and look through the old reviews from major reviewers. And so it says Batman and Robin, 12%. Nobody liked Batman and Robin. Batman Forever, 39%. Batman Returns, 80%. And Batman, 72%. So for how much nostalgia there is around those first 2 Batman movies, that's kind of interesting, considering Batman Returns is considered a classic, and the original Batman movie is considered really good as well. So I went over here to the Rotten Tomatoes, so it is still sitting at 87%. Let's see if it's changed. Nope. No. I do like how it says there's no audience rating, even though there's 500 plus ratings there. So those are likely people who are not verified and are just making their reviews based on it. I was going to include an article today about this particularly funny review that I found of this lady. She's like, the movie's too dark for the world we're living in right now. I'm like, well, it was made a long time ago. Okay, they couldn't predict what was going to happen in the world at the time of the release of this movie. I apologize. Plus, aren't these the people that abhor anything to do with escapism and want everything to be some type of weird social issue that has to be addressed in these movies, and everything has to be realistic and stupid?
Yeah, I could also see an argument that if you are in a dark time or things are tense, you don't necessarily want to go see a movie that's actually everything's fine, everything's good, because things don't feel fine.
I remember, not to get too political again, I do remember when House of Cards season 6 was coming out. Now this is post Kevin Spacey and all
All
this controversy there. But it was they're like, why House of Cards doesn't work in the Donald Trump era, because they're like, we're all scared that he's gonna get us bloated up. And so therefore, like, it makes more sense to see scary politicians on screen when everything's good during the previous administration, which, as we know, isn't actually reality. It's the reality that the media feeds you.
And it's your perspective.
It's
for a lot of people at that time, that administration was incredibly dark and heavy and doing things that they didn't agree with.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, not true of everyone, but to say, like, it's interesting that Hollywood is like, that was a good time and this one was a bad time. It shows you that they are completely biased.
And they have they know what's right for you, and they should be able to tell you. But now I do want to point out that article I'm referencing was from like the Seattle Times, so they're going to have their opinions. So they go through some of the reviews here, and it says, for the positive reviews, of course, Comic Book Movie loves it, delivering the definitive take on the world's greatest detective. The Batman is a sweeping cinematic masterpiece that's both DC's best film and one of the most captivating, relentless, and unforgettable comic book movies ever made. I appreciate that. I like that they're giving more broad takes here. But that does leave itself to, like, that's very subjective. They're not giving strong opinions on, like, this one has one. It says, discussing films, says Robert Pattinson gives a restrained yet sometimes unbridled and explosive performance as Batman. Like, I wouldn't want to be the guy who has to write these prose for them, like, when they're writing these articles. It says, I also say it isn't the same Batman movie. I appreciated Reeves' ambitions and his willingness to do something that wasn't just more of the same old Batman. That in reference to the fact that they've made this more of it's a film noir detective story than it is a comic book movie.
So I'm super excited about. I think that's going to be cool.
I'm sick to death that the reason Batman works, and one of the reasons a lot of people didn't think it worked in the Zack Snyder trilogy is because you're taking what is essentially a flesh and blood human being and putting them up against aliens and stuff like that. And it doesn't really work on the big screen. You can make that work in animation adaptations better, but it doesn't work as well in that context. So I am excited to see this. It says there was another one that I really liked here. It says was it there's a lot of hyperbole here. One of the greatest Batman stories ever told on film. Is that true? I don't know. That could be like, I do wonder how much of it is like buying clicks and stuff like that.
I know this is my hobby horse right now, but considering that this is not exactly a remake, but a reproduction of a well-known character, I love that they're mixing in detective noir elements. I think that's really strong. I think it's an underappreciated category in literature, and I love to see it come alive on the big screen because it is sort of a natural marriage between things that are interesting, and I think that our dependence on more sci-fi elements, maybe, if that's your thing, that's totally cool, but I love seeing a new perspective.
Yes. And the Nolan trilogy wasn't necessarily detective noir, but it was a crime thriller. It wasn't really a superhero movie. I wanted to pull this review up. I was going to ignore it, but it's just too funny in some place. I don't have it on there. I pulled this up. This is a little bit extra. But this, I feel so depressed reading something like this for certain people, because I can just imagine, like, it must be a bummer to be this person, and, like, I don't know. So it says, imagine, if you will, the pitch meeting for The Batman. Matt Reeves' reboot of the Caped Crusader franchise starring Robert Pattinson, like Joker, says someone at the conference table, but more depressing, someone else pipes up. We could save money on lighting by just, not lighting it at all. And another joins in, and what if we made it, like, really, really long? Like, the snark is real. Yeah. Like, it's like they can't help it. And then it says, Pattinson joins the mercifully sparse brotherhood of superheroes who are too moody to wash their hair. Here plays a young, eerily pale, and very intense Bruce Wayne. But this is no origin story. Bruce is already Gotham's vigilante hero, lurking in the night and swooping down in a bat suit to wreak vengeance on criminals. And his efforts are sorely needed. This version of Gotham City is a hellhole, and drenched in constant, sodden downpours. Seriously, I say this as a Seattleite, that is a lot of rain. That's called mood and setting tone, so that was on purpose. It says with this array of talent, they first go through the cast and everything. It says, why is the Batman so blah? It's partly the overwhelming darkness, both in mood and the film's actual appearance. It's like they do want everything to be sunshine and rainbows, and uplifting stories about climate change, and uplifting stories about Anne Boleyn I can't get over it. It says it's partly overwhelming darkness, but in mood, the film's actual appearance, action sequence are so much less effective when they're drenched in murk. They actually do that by choice usually because it's easier to hide CGI when the shots are done at night. It says it's also because any Batman needs to have a clear, very high bar to justify itself. Burton and Nolan's versions worked because each brought their unique skill as a filmmaker. Burton's wildly creative deco fantasy, Nolan's more realistic, soulfully poignant take of a man trapped by his own determination to make the world a better place. I agree with that part, actually. In Reeves' film, the world is burning, but we're not given much reason to care or really enough light to even see it. I wonder how much she actually took away from it, or if she just was not willing to find to get into that vibe, which is clearly what he was going for.
Well, and it's hard to not look at a review like this and think like, I feel like you were put off from the beginning by maybe the directing choice or some other choices made. And so if it had been technicolored and full of happy messaging, you would have been like, how inappropriate for them to run a happy movie during this tragic time in human history. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
It's hard not to read some reviews that are like, I don't know. I respect a critic's right to express their opinion fully. It's just,
I wonder sometimes about
like predetermined bias going in based on who the director is or who the actors are.
Yesterday, we talked about, she's like, do you want to watch Vikings Valhalla? And I said no, because I already watched a bunch of reviews for it, and I didn't finish the original Vikings series, and now my opinion has been colored of the show.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's my review on like I'm going to go into this movie, admittedly, with more of a positive spin because I have such an attachment to the character.
Right.
So, but you have to be willing to admit that.
Right.
Open
And
hand.
if you love the character and Dark Knight is your favorite movie of all time, hopefully you can go into it being like, this is not a comment on Dark Knight. It doesn't alter the universe that one took place in.
Yep.
This is just a reimagination of the character with unique creative liberties.
One thing it's funny she points to, Gotham City is a hellhole. That is what Gotham is in the comics. Like that's one of the things they've constantly messed up. I've railed on the point that in Batman Begins, Gotham is portrayed very dark, very almost it looks like I don't know if either of you guys saw Sin City, but it's bathed in black and orange, and it has a very surreal quality to it. But then in the following two movies, it just looks like New York and Chicago got spliced into the same place and became...
And I think that if you live in a city, especially one that's been altered, like the way New York or Chicago has because of the pandemic, but specifically New York, you might see that as offensive. On the other hand, that's actually original to the comics, and it's not a reactionary adaptation of modern times.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. So I just thought that was one of the more interesting takes on it, because I expect negative opinions, but it's usually more related to the film technique, or I would hope it would be more related to the actual storytelling elements and not be so determined to be around like whether it's connected to today or not.
Right.
That just seems weird to me. So I am excited to see this. We've got 2 more days to go. Wait, no, right? 2 more days to go. We're going on Thursday.
Yeah,
yes.
Thursday, so
okay.
2 more days.
2 more days. So I'm excited to see it. Miracle, are you excited?
I'm excited. Like, legit, we're going to get a Batman we deserve.
Yes. I'm still the only one in this house that liked Affleck as Batman. That's fine.
I don't know. I thought it was okay.
Dane hates that version of it.
Never seen it.
So it's fine. It is what it is. So I think it will be good, but we will see. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.